there named Jeff Harrison. Instead of this tiny foot, he found an entire limb bone jutting out of the side there. So if you can see, that's like the end of it, and then basically the top part is just exploded from erosion. And so the guy that found it, that's Jeff there. And so the next day, I arrived at the field camp, and he came up to me and was talking to me and everything, and he asked, "Can I name this site after you?" And so, henceforth, that's site that he found was called the Dinosaur. Yeah. And so this was the year that it was first discovered. You can kind of see a little bit of the exploded limb there, and we're starting to see a little bit of float in that little crevice there. And so that was me moving one of the pieces. I was very young back then. It's been a while. We have a site now. That's great. However, there's legal stuff we have to go through first to really get it going. So basically, the land that we found it on is Bureau of Land Management, and when it's that, if you got vertebrate fossils, you have to get a permit. So basically, what that means is we can't get a permit right away. So therefore, we have to leave the incredibly fragile fossil out the entire winter in a place that's known as the Badlands. So it was a worrisome winter, but once we got back out there, we could dig. And so basically the goal is to get rid of all of that soil that was on top of the fossil as quickly as possible, cover them in jackets, and get them here so we can get them prepped, cleaned, and everything like that. So at this site, it was a mile hike to get out to it. So not only is it hard work at the site, but it can also be a really tedious process just to get there. And we have to carry everything out there that we want. So the one guy there, he's carrying the generator. And then we carry out easy ups and all of that. And so you can see people walking there, and that little blue tarp is where we're heading. So that's the site a year later. See that little outcrop that I've kind of crawled into is now completely gone. The area that they're surrounded by is just a spaghetti bowl full of fossils. And so to get rid of that big overcrop, even though it's usually thought of as a very delicate process, we use jackhammers out there so that we can get through it in a very reasonable manner. And so that was me using it there. And then the guy there, Wolf, he is down there sifting what I'm breaking up really quickly to make sure I'm not hitting any bone. And so most of it's digging, but there's also other work done. That on the left there is me filling all of the cracks in the bone with the glue so that it's protected while it's out there and it doesn't break up further, so then the people in the prep lab can deal with it. So they don't have to worry about where does what bone go where. And then the one on the right is after we have finished plastering a really big limb bone. And we actually have 2 planks of wood that we put in there as well so that it would actually have structural support. Because that jacket right there is probably 300 to 400 pounds. So this is just a shot into action as all of us are working. There's also plastering, and I'm down there digging. It's just a lot of work. Luckily this was a big site, so we can have this many people working on it at once. And that whole blob there is probably a half-ton once it's excavated and plastered and everything. So when it's out there and it's just a whole bunch of bones, how could we even know what animal this is? So one of the most obvious things, we knew it was an herbivore because the carnivores usually have a very spongy, hollow bone, while the herbivores have a very dense bone. So we knew it was most likely like a duck-billed dinosaur or a triceratops based on that. But what we found that really clued us in was this really tiny, skinny bone. And that's a ossified tendon. All of us have tendons in our bodies. It helps create support. But with the duck-billed dinosaurs, they had such a large tail that their tendons would fossilize, even though it's not a bone, it's like a soft tissue. And so that's how we knew it would become a hadrosaur. So that's the whole team out there taking a break to get a nice picture in. to be there. So, after about like an 8-hour day out in the direct sun in the 90-degree weather, as long as the thunderstorms haven't rolled in, we get a nice leisurely walk back to our little chicken coop truck that we have, and someone to tailgate a little bit. And then of course, out at the dig is a lot of hard work, and so when we're back at camp, that's when we really get to hang out and just have a really good time. Like stage pictures, tell stories with one another, and just have a really good time out there and get close to one another. And so I wasn't completely there for the rest of the process, the carrying it out, preparing, cleaning, and having it added to the collections. That whole digging process took about 3 seasons once we had the permits. It was one of our, before the T-Rex school that they found here was done, that was the biggest, like the heaviest jumble of bones that the Burke Museum had collected. So it was a lot of work. And so the Burke Museum has this dig field school that comes out where teachers will come out and be able to work on the dig. And so when that happened, one of the teachers, Denise Porcello, she's in that shot there, in the crowd there, she decided she would like to write a book about my story. And so that is the book Dino Girl. It goes also into depth on all the whole process of digging up these bones. It's on Amazon, very fancy. And so currently I am going to be a senior at Montana State University. Even though I did a lot of digs, I want to go into scientific illustration. And so these are a few different like paleo-related illustrations I've done. That dinosaur on the right there, it's called Inchiornis. It was the first dinosaur where they were able to look at pigment in the sediment. And so that is likely the coloration that that dinosaur would have had. So that is like one of the most accurate dinosaurs we really have an illustration of. So yeah, if you'd like to see more, from 1 to 1:30 to 2:30, I will be doing a couple little art demos where I will have a little camera there and we'll be projecting what I'm working on. And so that will be what will be happening later today over here. So yeah, thanks for listening and for dealing with all of our technical difficulties that we experienced, but we made it. So if anyone has questions,